Hi, I am Inka from the European Institute for Crime Prevention and Control, HEUNI. I have with me my colleague Anni and also Katerina from the Greek Council for Refugees. And today we will talk about our toolkit for improving quality and impact of counseling for victims of gender-based violence. The toolkit was produced as a part of a project financed by the European Commission titled SARA. The aim of the project is to raise awareness on gender-based violence among migrant populations, as well as among policymakers in 4 EU member states. The project has several different activities, such as info cafes, creating podcasts, and meeting with policymakers. But the heart of the project is counseling for migrant women victims of violence. And to develop this counseling through the tool we'll be presenting to you shortly.
Here you can find the QR codes for the publication. It's available in 5 different languages, German, English, Greek, Finnish, and Italian. You can also download these from HEUNI's webpage. We recommend you to download the tool on your computer so it's easier for you to watch this presentation, as we have some small screenshots in the slides with very small print. The development of this tool has been guided by the SARA project team's commitment to work in a very victim-centered manner, aiming to strengthen inclusion and mutual recognition by specifically increasing the odds that topics discussed in counseling are exactly what the beneficiaries have been wanting to talk about and needing to talk about. The different mechanisms introduced within these tools can be used, for example, to support beneficiaries to understand their own strengths and priorities in order to make own decisions regarding their situation. The tools can also be used by the counselors to keep important notes about the next steps, and by organizations to collect data for impact evaluation and advocacy.
Just to clarify, by counseling, we mean one or several one-on-one sessions where women are given an opportunity to be heard and offered assistance. And the support might include psychosocial counseling, information on rights, and other ways of supporting everyday well-being. For more information about this particular counseling method, you can consult our handbook, which can be found at HEUNI's webpage.
So in practice, the toolkit consists of 4 different tools. These combine different methods, and we've been utilizing research and practice and learning from our colleagues within the project and sharing different experiences. These tools can be used independently, or they can be used together, or you can only choose certain parts within the tools that might suit your work. Our hope is that the toolkit could provide you with ideas and small solutions that can improve the quality and impact of your counseling. We have also included discussions about ethical and practical considerations. For example, we have discussion about power dynamics between the counselor and the beneficiary. When should consent be asked to collect information, and how to do it? We have also included some discussion on how to handle data if it's collected and so on. We especially try to highlight that the use of these tools should not interfere with trust building, for example, and we will have later in this presentation Katerina to tell us more about the practical insights on deciding when exactly to use the tools and how she has been using them in practice. So the first tool has been designed to collect background information on beneficiaries and data on access to services. This tool can be used to collect information on the services and the encounters. They are essentially background variables and they can be used for your own counseling purposes or by your organization to understand who the individuals are that are encountered and what kind of services have been provided for them and how to improve perhaps even the services. Here in the SARA project, we have been using the tool to collect information about the project beneficiaries specifically. We have been using these questionnaire templates in the tool to illustrate them. However, for example, in the SARA project, we've created a web-report template out of few different questions within this tool. The counselors fill in the template, and if they have consent from the beneficiary, and so we are able to receive quite a lot of meaningful information that can be used to measure impact of our SARA project or for advocacy purposes.
Okay, and the second tool is basically discussion topics for counseling sessions. And the purpose of this tool is to ensure that the beneficiary and her needs are heard, and assist the beneficiary herself to understand her own strengths, resources, expectations, and priorities. And then on the other hand, to help the counselor to manage her own expectations and to make informed decisions about the possible steps in supporting the beneficiary. In practice, this tool includes questions and discussion points that could be incorporated to the counseling sessions. It utilizes smiley faces you can use to indicate current thoughts and moods, as well as you can see on the page 10, this 4-square tool, which can be used to organize concerns into an order of urgency and importance. And to collect feedback, for example, has the beneficiary been able to bring up topics that she wanted to? Again, this is questionnaire style is just one way to illustrate the tool, and you can print it, fill it together with the beneficiary as a full, or you can use and print and use some parts of it, or you can just incorporate some of the questions into your working routine. Moreover, it's very important to consider the appropriate moment to use, for example, this part of or any part of the tool, whether it's in the beginning of a session to understand the situation of the beneficiary or at the end of the session to kind of collect feedback that how did this session go and did we talk about the topics that you wanted to talk about.
So tool 3 is essentially a feedback form for the counseled persons. We feel strongly that providing opportunities for feedback on the services or counseling is one way to strengthen the voice of beneficiaries. So this part includes a template designed to collect opinions anonymously, as well as needs and possible concerns on the type and quality of services. One of the ethical concerns or considerations we have included in this tool is that it's really important for the beneficiary to understand that responding is voluntary and that negative feedback is also welcomed. And if feedback is given, it will not affect the services in any way. And also that anonymity cannot always be guaranteed, especially when there are interpreters or the counselors help the beneficiaries to give the feedback. Also, it's important to ensure that asking for feedback will not compromise the safety of the beneficiary. For example, if this would be sent via email or a link to this form would be sent by a text message, which would be shared with the perpetrator, for example.
And the last tool is self-reflection questions for the counselor. And we included this part in the tool because we feel that self-reflection is an important method to understand the different roles and responsibilities you as a counselor might have on and off work. In a challenging and possibly quite consuming work environment, it is important to stop every once in a while and monitor one's own expectations as a professional, your thoughts, feelings, and reactions that might arise as part of the counseling work. Self-reflection is also a useful way of observing one's own coping at work and needs for self-care. This part of the tool includes guidance and questions that encourage you to systematically practice self-reflection. And it is important to keep in mind that self-reflection should not lead to unfounded self-critique or perceiving only problems and flaws in the counseling or in the work you are doing. So in order to maintain a positive balance, the tool encourages to end the self-reflection every time with a positive thoughts on what went well. And finally, it's of utmost importance to ensure that when using the content of this toolkit, whether it is for data collection or for your own personal use, the use should be planned and implemented in a manner that ensures privacy and the ethical concerns that Anni, for example, mentioned earlier, and that which you can also find discussed in the publication. And finally, the tool is to be used in a counseling settings where a safe client-counselor relationship has been already established, and the tools are not to be used if the beneficiary is overwhelmed with the tool or some of the questions or the format, and it just creates additional stress. The client's well-being should always be the main priority. So next, Katerina Paschou from the Greek Council for Refugees will share her experiences in using the toolkit. Please, Katerina.
Thank you very much, Inka and Anni. So my name is Katerina Paschou. I'm working as a psychologist in Greek Council for Refugees, and I'm part of the SARA project as one of the counselors. I'll try to give you some guidelines and some practical experiences about using the toolkit. So first of all, I'll just sum up some good practices that I've seen from my own experience. So generally, there's no right there's no right time universally or right way universally to use the impact tool. It is important, as already mentioned, to use it maybe in different parts and at different times. And the use of the whole toolkit should be personalized according to the needs of the beneficiary and according to what suits each counselor. So what I'm going to say, it suits me, but it's not sure that it will be okay for every counselor. So apart from that, I've seen that Toolkit works well not in the beginning of the sessions because I feel that it interferes the trust building. So I'm usually taking some time to get to know the beneficiary, to introduce my role, and then around like at the third counseling sessions, we can start using some tools from the toolkit. Apart from that, maybe a good thing to have in mind is that we don't have to use it every time. So it's okay if you use different parts at different times and not all the toolkit together because it's so time consuming and so tiring both for the counselors and the beneficiaries. So I'm going just to have a quick look at my notes in order to tell you some more things about the tool 1. So if you go to page 12 or 13, it's the part 1 of the toolkit, the tool 1, which is actually some questions about the background of the beneficiary, the GBV type that she experienced, and some steps of the counseling. So this part, it's something that a counselor can use it on his own. So it's not supposed to be addressed directly to the beneficiary. So each counselor can use it as a way to keep on track what he has or she has done during the session, what are the next steps, referrals, etc. It helps on the case management, and it really helps to have a whole first image of the first meetings and the next steps that you're going to take. So I usually print it and I keep it in the file of the beneficiary with some other information about her case. So moving on to the second part, which is the tool 2, and more precisely on the page 16 and 19, there are some parts of the tool 2 which seems to be a kind of feedback. So these feedback, it's really, really useful, but I'm not using it as it is on the tool. So I'm not using the exact phrases. I'm trying to rephrase the questions, use open-ended questions, and integrate them in, throughout the whole session to give the impression to the beneficiary that it is important for me to know how she feels throughout the whole session, and it is important for me to get her feedback. So don't have in mind something technocratic or something like a questionnaire, but try to rephrase and make your own language out of it and your own way throughout the session. Apart from that, this actually, the feedback gives a good sense of control to the beneficiary, and it helps also a possible burnout for the professional, because you know how it goes and you can take the feedback and readjust your sessions according to what the woman, the beneficiary, wants. Apart from that, there is also another part in this tool, the tool 2, and it's what I like to call the needs assessment and the resources assessment. So these are, I think it's the page 17 and 18. This part was really, really challenging for me because I couldn't really explain easily to the beneficiaries the point of this we would say exercise. But then I started thinking that it shouldn't be filled out as an exercise, but I should use some really simple vocabulary in order just to engage them into a simple discussion about what problems they may have in everyday life, what are their needs, and what they would like from our session. And on the other part, to focus on the resources that they have. So from that point, we can empower them even more using these resources. So what I like to do with that part is that I like to print it out to give it as a form directly to the beneficiary. I'm saying her because I usually work with women, the pen, and I'm asking her to write maybe some thoughts according to what the uh, assessment says in her own language. So I invite her really to think and to write in her own language, because it is important for me to give her back the control, and I use it also as a symbolic way to show her that for me it's important for her to talk and to say what she needs, and not for me to speak instead of her. And I like to have it printed out and in her own language, because I'm using it as a take-home message. So then she will take the filled form and she can take it home in order to have her like as her own journal of sessions, in order to remember what it is important for her and how we will move on as far as her needs are concerned. Research also shows that visualization of some categorizations of the problems help um, a lot the coping out strategies. So you can have that in mind too. And yeah, I'll just say again, stay as simple as possible about the way that you're helping her and explaining the whole of the different phrases in the tool, and think also about alternative ways of your communication, because some people may be illiterate, so they will not understand the questions or they cannot read them. So think about like different drawings. Maybe I have done such a thing with a beneficiary who wasn't really used to writing. So she just, for example, in the resources, she just draw her family a little bit to show me that that's important for her and that's what empowers her. Moving on the tool 3, which is the official feedback form, I like to use it better at the end of some sessions so that we have some essential points revised. And it is important maybe to be used also as part of the closing up procedure in order to have the feedback at that moment, because the experience shows that at the closing up moment is the time that the beneficiary will give the most honest feedback, because she's not she doesn't have the fear that she will miss the services if she says something um, inappropriate, or if she is not satisfied with the services. It is important to be given in their own, like in their own language, the languages of the beneficiaries, because otherwise, as Annie said and Inka, there are different biases with interpreters or counselors helping the feedback. So um, this interferes with the confidentiality, and it's not really anonymous if you help the other person give the feedback. So have in mind that actually all the impact tool, I would say, it is really important to be translated in the languages of the beneficiaries. And finally, the tool 4, it's the self-reflection part, which was again really challenging for me, because it seems that in everyday work life I didn't have a lot of time to think about what went good and what went wrong in a session, because I'm used to doing a lot of appointments. But using the impact tool, and especially this part, showed me that it is really important to slow down a little bit my rhythm and take some time to think about all these different parts of the counseling. And it actually helps me to readjust and be more open to what the beneficiary wants, but it also helps me decharge and recharge actually a little bit. And it's a time to connect with yourself. It's a time of self-care, which is super important when you're working in the field. And it prevents from the burnout. And apart from all that, I think I would say that it grounds your expectations. So this is really important to also be grounded and try to focus on what the beneficiary wants, and to be able to give yourself like a positive feedback about what you did right. So as far as a whole take-home message, what I could say, impact tool is not a tool, it's a mindset. So don't try to be really strict with how you're going to use it. It's just a mindset. Try to rephrase, try to use the whole mentality of be open to feedback and give the control to the beneficiary. The point it is to give the control of the session to the beneficiaries in order for them to regain their voices, and this will actually help the point of the whole counseling. Think about personalized factors, as we said, what goes for you, what goes for the beneficiary. Be adaptive and think about alternative ways of communicating and using the impact tool. And have in mind also that always the priority is the well-being of the beneficiary. If at any point it doesn't seem comfortable for the beneficiary to use the tool, don't do it. We don't care. The important thing is to be comfortable when using it. And even if he or she doesn't want to use it at all, please respect that, because you will find another way to use the different parts of the tool throughout the counseling. but we don't force at all the beneficiaries to be engaged in the impact tool and implement such exercises. And I would also like to point out that these tools help me also not especially with the work with migrant women victims of gender-based violence, but I can see myself using it throughout the whole counseling with refugees, so in psychosocial support. So have that in mind too, because I think it can be used in a different way also. So to sum up about the SARA project and how it's linked to the impact tool, I was thinking that SARA, which is the abbreviation for different words, safe, aware, resilient, able, and heard, has a different connection to the different tools. So the impact tool, it's important to use it after creating a safe space with the beneficiary, after creating a safe space of trust building. But at the same time, it helps the creation of a safe space because you use it in a beneficiary friendly way, and you give the impression that the feedback is important. So this really facilitate the trust building. Apart from that, it is important because it can help the beneficiary to be aware of her own needs and resources, and the counselor to be aware of the needs of the beneficiary, but of the needs of his own also via the self-reflection part. It is also connected to resiliency because through the assessment of resources, we can focus on that part, and we can focus on the part of empowering. Able, actually this word connects also to the impact tool because it gives the ability to the beneficiary to use it on his own, and it shows that it's as if you are saying you are able to do it on your own, you're able to tell me what you need, and you are able to empower yourself. And heard, because I think when I use the impact tool, what I like having in mind is that as a counselor, I really want to hear what they need from me and not suppose what they need or what they ask. So give the voices to the beneficiaries to express what they would like from your own counseling. So I think that's the take-home message, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Katerina. We would love to hear some feedback from this session, or if you have used the toolkit. So provide your feedback by using the link or the QR code you can find below. And the toolkit can be downloaded from our webpage in 5 different languages. And if you would like to have a hard copy in English, just email us in the email that I will show you in a minute, and we'll send you copies. I would also like to mention here that in the project we have also created a podcast series in which migrant women discuss about gender-based violence in Somali, Farsi, English, and Arabic. You can find them in SoundCloud and Spotify. This is something you could use as a resource in your counseling sessions, or you could distribute to anyone who might be interested on the topic. So you can follow us also in Twitter, in Facebook, or drop us a note via these emails. Kiitos.
Thank you.
Ευχαριστούμε.